where you think, okay, I've got an agent now, and it was a fairly high-powered agent. So you think, okay, this is looking really good. And then just to get it dashed at that hurdle, it was incredibly dispiriting.
Imagine.
But you keep on trying, because having got that far, and even after the agency decided that it didn't want to work with me anymore, I got an email from the woman who'd worked on the edit with me, and she said, "This is a good book. Don't give up."
Well,
that helped a lot.
That's it. Sometimes getting it in the hands of the right person.
Yeah, it's always that. To any writers who are slogging away and have disappointment, please keep on trying. Because you'll get a lot of rejection. I've had an awful lot of rejection for my writing in my life. If you don't keep on trying, it's not going to happen.
That's good advice.
You've got to be in it to win it.
Well,
very true. Now, have you given up on your nonfiction books? I know you said those were more music-related.
I still do some music journalism, and I have occasional thoughts of doing a music book. The last one I did was a biography of one of my favorite singer-songwriters, a guy called John Martin. And that came out in 2011, although the circumstances behind that were a little strange. Do I see myself doing any more nonfiction? Probably not. I've cut down a lot on the music journalism I do. I focus much more on fiction these days, which financially is not a great move. But I turned 64 this year, and I've got to focus on what I really want to do. So that's what I'm doing. I still keep my hand in writing about music I really love, but also the music I like, which is more roots music, folk music. There are far fewer outlets for writing about that these days than there were 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. In some ways, what I'm doing is a better use of my time, I think.
And then, do you have any upcoming events or books you would like our listeners to know?
Well, certainly books. The Hanging Psalm, which you mentioned, came out 2 weeks ago in Britain, and it comes out January the 1st in the US. You can, of course, buy a copy, go into your favorite bookshop and ask them to get it in. And if it's an independent bookshop, that's even better, although, of course, the big chains will be happy to do it. Or simply go to your local library and ask the library service to order a copy in. Because that way, not only do you get to read it, but it's there for other people to read as well.
Well, we were very thrilled that our library had some of your books, so we were very fortunate on that end. But we're big supporters of independent bookstores.
Oh, absolutely. You know that you need them to stay in business. And I'm a huge supporter of libraries. I do a number of library events around here. I've got 2 in the next 2 weeks, which are related to an exhibition I was involved with about the days before women got the vote here, the Victorian times, when the women who worked for suffrage. I assisted an academic on putting this exhibition together because it tied into my last Tom Harper book called The Tin God. Yeah, I do a lot of library events, and I'm always happy to do those. And I love people taking my books out of the libraries over here, because in this country, every time someone takes out one of my books, I get a little payment for it.
Oh, really?
That's amazing.
Very interesting. I like that idea.
It's about a dime.
Well, still.
Hey.
But it mounts up over the year,
10 people, that's $1.
Yeah. Once a year you get a payment, and I look at it as free money.
Yeah.
Who turns down free money?
Yep, very true. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the interest and the support. I really do. Thank you.
All right, you take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was a great interview, and now that we have finished with that, we'll let you know about some of his books that we have personally read.
Okay, Kathy?
I'll start with The Crooked Spire, which takes place in Chesterfield, England in the 1360s. And I really like this book. I think that Chris has a real feel for writing about time and space. As the book went along, I could almost picture the 1360s and how people dressed and their manner of speaking. And of course, most of their life revolved around the church. And what happens in the book is John, the carpenter, no one had a last name, he rolls into Chesterfield to get a job. He's a carpenter, and he starts working on the spire in the local church. And people start dying almost immediately, his head carpenter dies, and he happens to be the one who finds him. So he becomes involved with the local coroner, and he has this driving need to find justice for Will, the head carpenter. And as time moves on, he just puts his information in, and the coroner comes to rely on him, and he helps figure out who is actually the culprit. Of course, a couple murders come along in between there. I think it was just done so well, and the characters are portrayed in a realistic manner.
I read The Cold, Cruel Winter, which is the second in his Richard Nottingham series, and this takes place in the 1730s in Leeds, England, and it is the story of several brutal murders that occur during the winter, and it's a particularly brutal winter. In fact, Richard Nottingham has just buried his daughter as one of the victims. It's cold and people freezing to death, not enough food. You can just feel the cold as you read this. Descriptions that Chris Nickson puts in his book, the man walking to town with rags on his feet and how the pain as he walks through the ice. And then they find the body of a local merchant. His throat has been slit, but when they go to move him, they discover that all the skin on his back has been removed.
Ooh,
very skillfully. They receive a book several weeks later made from the skin of the man
Even
who
creepier.
was murdered. The murderer in this book lists 4 people that he wants to kill. The constable of Leeds is one. It's not Richard Nottingham because it was his predecessor who dealt with this man originally. Since that constable is dead, he is on the list of victims. So he is definitely he has to stop this man, and it's a very, very good read. I will read a lot more of Mr. Nickson's books.
I think what's interesting about this time period is the fact that death was such a big part of these people's lives that sometimes the killer could get away with things because people just died back then, especially when it came to poisoning and things like that.
Right. Well,
this was before forensic.
But when you slit somebody's throat and take the skin off their back,
that's a dead giveaway.
That's kind of a giveaway. That was one of the things in the book, that you could hide a body very easily because there were so many dead people. But it was very well done. And then the third book that we're going to talk about is called The Hanging Psalm, which is a new series that he started.
It just came out 2 weeks over in England.
Yes, it hasn't come out in the U.S. yet.
But we're fortunate to get a copy of it and able to read it.
It was a very good book also. It features Simon Westlaw, who is a thief taker. And this is also in the 1700s.
And a thief taker is basically, if somebody has something stolen from them, Simon would hunt them down and retrieve the item. He would take the item back from the thief.
And get the reward and possibly prosecute the person.
He was a compelling character. Everybody in this book was so interesting.
Well, the best characters, though, were the women.
Yes.
His wife, Rosie, and their protege, Jane, are 2 very formidable women, and watch out if you see them coming.
Definitely. They took care of business.
Yes, they were. The book was very well done from head to toe.
Well, I think that Chris has a knack for writing about character development, and I agree. I think in all 3 of the series that we were able to read, the women were especially well written. And they were a lot of strong, independent women and believable for the time, I think.
Definitely.
Especially in that period of time where women were supposed to be the people who did all the work, while the men they worked too, but not as hard as the women did. Plus they had to raise the children, and and do all the household.
One thing I thought that was very interesting is Simon talked about that he was hiding money away, that if something happened to him, he wanted to make sure that Rosie and Jane and his 2 sons were taken care of, because back then, money didn't pass to a woman.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure that no matter what, they were taken care of, and I thought that was very interesting.
I really look forward to reading more of these books.
Well, we have a lot to choose
Series.
from.
I know we do. I'm looking forward to reading the Lottie Armstrong next. Get into more modern times. Go all the way up to the
and
1920s.
Wasn't it interesting when he said he's slowing down to 2 books a year?
Yes.
2 books a year.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And very well done books.
Yes.
I don't feel they're rushed. There's so much research that goes into these, and very, very well done.
I recommend Chris Nickson's books very highly.
So do I.
Yeah, the character development was great. The descriptions of the city, the mysteries themselves were very well done, and the solutions. I just devoured the books I read.
Yes, definitely. So keep them coming, Chris.
Well, now we have to assign our next author, who is Chris Ould. O-U-L-D.
Chris Ould is a BFTA award-winning screenwriter who has worked on TV shows including The Bill, Soldier Soldier, Casualty, and Hornblower. Chris has previously published 2 adult novels and the second of his series of young adult crime novels. The Killing Street was published by Osborne in June 2013.
We look forward to looking at Chris's books, and we will submit questions to him. He has asked for a written interview. And so that brings us to the end of another Dark and Stormy Book Club.
And you know the deal. If you need to email us, it's darkandstormybookclub@gmail.com.
Website is itwasadarkandstormybookclub.com. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with our review of Chris Ould. And next week, our bookends will feature Hunting the Troll by Mark Richardson and an interview with Jessica Jarlvey, the author of What Did I Do? And we will also feature another book club. So we will see you next week. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery.
bye.